From my vantage point, I did not have a good vantage point. I mean, don't let us bother you there. You've been stellar today, and hitting the microphone at the start of the segment is exactly the way that I wanted to start that segment.
You hit we give a countdown before we get going. That's your time to adjust.
I did. It wasn't adjusting. I was just like flailing
not ready.
my arms
It's happened. It's happened 7 segments today, including one where you were fully eating a muffin, and I couldn't go to you because you were busy eating a muffin.
Untrue. Untrue. I will not stand here for these untruths, lies, and
I mean, you've walked in at the last second of every segment we've done today, and that's not the worst of it.
He's a victim of a crime, Dan. He's,
Yeah, well, this is the thing that I noticed during the break that is, like, offensive, and he should be embarrassed by, because I couldn't believe what I saw, and I couldn't see his face when it happened because it was hidden by the door of the fridge. Billy emerged from the fridge holding triumphantly Amin's allegedly stolen flan.
Wow.
It had his name on it, and he made all sorts of accusations, including he blamed Hildy.
She admitted to it, which is weird because she didn't even commit the crime, but he convinced her to admit that she ate his flan that had not been eaten.
You forced a false confession?
Yeah.
Rather convenient, I do declare.
Wow.
First of all, young Mr. Gill just appeared with the flan out of nowhere.
It was behind a pickle jar.
It had your name on it.
The handwriting analysis is still in effect, Dan, and we're going to figure out, we're going to get to the bottom of this.
You're saying it wasn't your handwriting?
The investigation is ongoing, Mr. Stugotz.
Okay, all right.
It was exactly as you described it, even with the
It looked
coconut
like
shavings
it had your
on
name, and it had the A, and then you said you did. You said originally that you thought the A would be enough, and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to put my whole name here because there are no other Amins, and it had Amin on it.
I said, Mr. Le Batard, the investigation is ongoing by top men and women.
I don't understand why you have felt the need in the last 2 segments to do Obama, Doc Rivers, and
I love how satisfied he was by saying, and women.
It was a little late, but better late than never.
I'm starting to learn here.
You have written the word Amin on the top of a plastic container. It is your handwriting. The A is larger than the rest of the letters.
How can we be really sure? That's flan. It looks like cheesecake from where I sit, Mr. Le Batard.
Okay.
I actually saw it and I thought, is that cheesecake? And then I was like, this cannot be it. It's just behind a pickle jar. There's no way this is what he's making a big deal about.
Now, if the cameras could zoom in a little, you could see.
That's not how you're supposed to handle evidence, by the way.
What?
There's the gloves.
Oh, well, it's not the fingerprints that count. It's the handwriting analysis that we're performing, Mr. Ruiz. As I said, you can see the sample of my handwriting right on this bottle right here. It's a little faded, but you can see my handwriting there. Now, compare and contrast this handwriting. Totally different. Totally different. I submit to you in the court that this is a fabrication. This is not the flan in question. This was a plant made by one Mr. Gilliam, a.k.a. Billy Gill.
So someone got you
3
a
minutes?
fresh flan? That should be a net positive.
It's a fabrication. Flan and fabrication.
Why is Bill
in a
Clinton
portmanteau.
talking to us right now?
I did not say I was part of this.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
I did not have sexual relations with that flan.
I didn't say either of those things.
All right, take you and all of your characters and get in the penalty box.
Not
Just
to
get out
like
of here.
reinforce gender stereotypes, whatever, they're bad, etc. But men are terrible at looking for things, right?
Yes.
Like objectively.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
you
We can
couldn't
accept
move a
that.
pickle jar.
My wife says that of me all the time.
This entire situation is FUBA.
Go sit in the penalty box.
What killed the dinosaurs?
At Le Batard Show.
It's not the FUBA.
Juju at Le Batard Show. Are men terrible at finding lost items?
I was great at hidden pictures.
The Plaxico Burris jersey is pretty apropos.
Get out. He's worried about the dog. He doesn't want to go outside because there's a dog at the door, and he's
Stick
afraid.
him in the penalty box with the dog,
Yes,
please.
yes. Put him in the penalty
Thank
box
you.
with the dog.
I do declare the person wearing the Plaxico jersey just shot himself in the foot.
I don't think we should be skipping past something that Brockmeyer said. It was odd enough that the Gator story was true, but also kind of odd is what is happening around the Oakland A's. Because in a season marred by one of their announcers leaving the team because he used the N-word by accident next to a colleague in Dallas Braden, who was sitting next to him confused and didn't correct him.
It was so much like the scene in Anchorman.
It
After
was
Go Bleep
something-
Yourself and
it's
Go
the-
Bleep Yourself San Diego.
They
Good
just
show,
kept-
everybody. Bob on the lights.
But okay, so
Fantastic.
that's over there.
It's a tricky spot for Dallas.
It is a tricky spot for everybody. Thank you, Stugotz. But
It's not
you can have
that
a
tricky.
reaction. You can have a
Until
reaction.
you're there, Mike.
You cannot make it that obvious that you weren't listening, which is the best case scenario for Dallas Braden. Regardless, it's a controversy off to the side that I'm not sure the Oakland A's didn't welcome, so you wouldn't see how bad their baseball team is. Talk about anything else. But now they've got a 7-game winning streak. Stugotz the last 2 days has come in here delighted and surprised that he's won bets in which he has bet Oakland against Tampa. The greatest run differentials in the history of the sport. Tampa's is so good and Oakland's is so bad, and Oakland has beaten Tampa 2 nights in a row.
I got them at plus 220 and plus 180. Plus 180 because they're hot.
Yes, they are 7 straight. They're the hottest team in baseball.
Yes.
However, yesterday, you have to understand, they have gotten 0 crowds for their game. Oakland, the city around, is so fed up, and it's got such a great baseball history. Oakland's got such a great sports history. Oakland's history in general is interesting. It's like the original ghettos were in Oakland, and you will find Hall of Famers in various forms of entertainment within blocks of each other grew up because there was so much talent in Oakland. Nobody goes to the baseball games. Like, abysmal crowds, and the ushers are getting in trouble for enforcing seating when there are a dozen people there. But yesterday they got $27,000 for a game, and it was to make the owner sell the team by chanting in unison, sell the team, and wearing uniforms. And in honor of the 55-year history of the Oakland A's, they pulled off a 55-second moment of silence, which would have been much easier in all their usual ballpark crowds. But 27,000 people being quiet in protest had an impact, and I don't know which was the better impact, 55 seconds of silence or chanting sell the team and only showing up to wear shirts where you're chanting sell the team.
If I may, last night very clearly was a difficult sports night for me, and I noticed this thing was happening, and I sought it because it was such a great palate cleanser, and it was a cool, feel-good story. They're going to lose, it stinks losing teams, and they're about to set a record. I know that the Golden State Warriors are Golden State and they're in that area, but they left the Oakland area for more high price real estate. They've lost the Raiders, and now it looks like they're going to lose their baseball team. It has to feel terrible. And normally you'd see people check out, and the whole notion of a reverse boycott was kind of inspiring, and it made for one of the wildest baseball environments that you'll ever see. It was a surreal experience.
You say it's a feel-good story, though. It's a horror if you care about sports, because their chants are going to be lost to history, and their pain is going to be lost to history because they're going to kill baseball in that market.
Plus, the idea of having a baseball team in Vegas is so cool.
We did an episode of Meadowlarkers where we talked to Andy Dolich and Dave Newhouse. They wrote a book called Goodbye Oakland, about how the city of Oakland, for its entire existence in professional sports, has just been kind of something that's been used as a pawn, something to build interest somewhere else, and how they've been dicked over as a city over and over and over again. And this is just the latest in a long string of owners that have used and abused this town that really deserves better in terms of, especially when you consider the amount of fandom and the passion of these fans. For
How
all
much
the different
winning
sports.
they've done, too.
That too,
I mean,
yeah.
those organizations.
Successful, yeah.
Yes.
That was a great and really informative episode of Meadowlarkers, and you'll also enjoy watching it because those are some of the oldest men you'll ever see try to use Zoom in your life.
And I guess part of the Raiders' history is that they were this transient franchise. So we're going back and forth. And the Warriors do have roots in San Francisco, and it's not necessarily Oakland's team, though it kind of felt like that, especially through the Baron Davis years and that great low seed that beat the Mavericks. But the A's have such a rich history in Oakland. Out of all the professional franchises, that feels most like Oakland's to me. And to move them seems more wrong than I guess it feels like for any of the others.
Can you guys look up for me the last time they got 27,000 people for a baseball game? Because it's not just that Oakland has a history of winning, even though one of the reputational credibility hits that they take is that Billy Beane, who changed the way the sport was measured, changed the way analysis was done, really formed the modern day Rays by being smarter than everyone else and finding value in the margins.
Never won it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Never did win, but did alter the way that player analysis works in that sport.
Mm-hmm.
A win.
Yeah. I'm trying to find out the last time they drew that many fans. It's been a while.
It looks like the wild card game in 2019, they had 54,000 fans.
So it's been 3-4 years since.
Yeah, it's easier to do that when you have a football stadium, as we learned with the Florida Marlins at the time setting an attendance record.
You guys have to look up their numbers and how far they are from everyone else in the major leagues in attendance numbers. You are talking about a team like it feels when you're watching a baseball game on television in Oakland like you're watching a haunted ballpark. It felt like it did during the pandemic when fans aren't allowed in the ballpark.
Well, it's so cavernous because it's such a huge ballpark like that. They said that the 27,759 surpassed their opening day 26,805, and the A's had not drawn more than 20,000 fans until this reverse.
They are averaging 9,000, just over 9,000 fans per night. The Marlins are second to last at 11,000.
They had a game earlier this year where they drew 2,064 fans.
Someone say another stat really quick, right in a row.
Lowest since September 19th, 1979, when they only drew 1,000.
1,000.
Oh.
Nice close. Nice dismount. I want to explore this for a second because, Tony, it can be hard with the number of people that we have in here to get in the tight windows where you're not stepping on others and there isn't a lot of space to be a 6th or 5th or 7th or 1,000th voice on a show where everyone's got microphones. I just want to know when Jessica put out the challenge of go ahead, we have 3 seconds left in this segment. Somebody give me a stat real quick, why it is that you comfortably and confidently jumped into that breach and then how you felt immediately when realizing, oh no, I've got my numbers wrong. I'm stumbling over the finish line. Take me through what just happened there.
Yeah, so as she's saying that, I'm like, oh, perfect. There's one little stat because I saw where Amin said it. It's the next sentence. September 19th, 1979, they had 1,037 fans. So as I'm looking at that, I'm like, all right, perfect. Here we go. It's time to deliver. 3 seconds. And then 2-1, I lose the 1037. And I'm like, 10. I'm like looking for it. Damn, where is it? Where is it? That's 1979. And then I said 1000. And I just said to Amin's ear while you were starting the segment, that one's going to sit with me for a little bit. They rarely do, right? Great shooters keep shooting no matter what. This one, 1000. That one sat with me for a little bit because it was at the buzzer, and it was just brick. And I was like, oh, come on.
You need a good line to make up for it. You do. Yeah, to make it go away.
I got you.
All right.
I thought of this when I read a story earlier this week about a family found that a father who had passed away had left behind $1 million pennies hidden in the home in a wall of the home.
It's $10,000.
$200.
You guys are trying to do the math.
That is correct. $10,000, 10 hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would have thought it was more than that.
$1 million pennies?
That's such a
You're like Stugotz. You're like
move.
I mean, it's $1 million of something.
That's
Dan's
got to
right.
be worth at least $5 million.
I think it's worth more if you melt it down.
Yeah. I believe that's true, actually.
No, aren't pennies worth less than a penny now? Because they're made
Yeah,
of
so
like,
you melt it down into copper.
Yep.
And you
Pennies
just
are
sell
not
the
Copper's
copper.
worth more.
Put it on the poll, please, at LeBatard Show. Do you still use pennies? Also put on the poll at LeBatard Show. Do you take pennies back as change if you use cash? Most people don't anymore.
I don't take any change back anymore. It's a
Really?
weird thing. Yeah.
You round up
rich, though,
everything.
yeah.
Everything, yes. Even if it's 75 cents,
A
84
quarter-
cents.
You don't take back quarters?
Just give me the bills. Yeah.
I love change. Change is the best. What if this guy
Change.
gave them a
It was Obama's slogan in
No, I know,
2008.
I
No,
know.
Michael's
It
like,
was excellent.
why would you say change in that moment, in that voice? That's why.
pennies are made of zinc, by the way.
Huh.
Put it on the poll.
Coated in
Is
copper.
that right? It's not copper.
Really?
I googled it. It says,
I don't
says
think
it's
so.
Copper's too
a,
I
expensive.
could have eaten a penny
says
during
pennies.
COVID.
This is from the United
Would've been
States
good for you.
Mint, which always sounded tasty to me until I found out it's just like the mint. It's like where they make money. I'm like, ooh, United States Mint. .gov. It's a .gov, so it's legit,
There you
guys.
go.
Although I was doing something like with like U.S. Customs, Border, whatever, Homeland Security, all that like pre-SAT check thing, pre-check,
Yeah,
and they were
pre-SAT.
like, "How do you know?" At the top of the website, how do you know this is a real website? And I was like, you know, if a fake website was trying to pretend to be a real government website, it would probably have the same slogan at the top too. But they said .gov.
What was
There's
the
no
slogan?
Forgeries. What? What slogan?
You said if it had the same slogan at the top. What
Like,
was the slogan?
this is how you know this is a real website. To try to like convince you
Oh,
you're
they
on
wrote-
because
it-
there's
it
fake.
said that
there's websites pretending to be government.
It's like a
websites.
cop has to tell you they're a cop, you know?
Right,
when you
but that's
ask.
what a
exactly.
fake. That,
Tony
like,
knows.
That's what
yeah.
everyone would say.
Put it on the
It
poll,
tripped me up.
please, Juju at LeBatard Show. Did the United States Mint sound tasty to you when you were a child? And did you know that pennies were made of zinc? I'm still questioning that. I don't think that that's
It's
true.
on a .gov. I just told you.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm still
says it's a real
questioning
website
it.
on the website,
I
Dan,
understand.
so.
Thank you, Billy.
It says the outside layers are 3/4 copper and 1/4 nickel, and the filling is solid copper. Pennies are made of zinc, coated with copper.
What?
Billy,
Hey.
I need to go back.
Sorry, I cut off the beginning there, and it made
What's
less
happening?
sense than it should have.
Okay, you guys are doing great so far this segment. Billy, let me go to you because I want to go back to the first hour of this show when you were playing Amin's Patino game with former Florida Panthers, and I believe that you threw 3 or 4 names at us that weren't actually Florida Panthers.
Well, I was saying Florida's Panthers coaches because we were talking about the coach.
Right.
Yeah, because it was like Amin yesterday. It was like Westworld season 2, where I was making jokes on the jokes. You know what I mean? And did I throw in some made up names? Yeah.
What were the made-up names that you threw into the very
one knows.
small and the very small windows?
Did you notice the made-up names?
Exactly right. Did you?
You should. You know what you should do, Billy? You should
Well, he's
say
asking.
the names over and
don't
make Dan pick out which ones are real and which ones are fake.
Trapper LaFleur was a completely made up name.
Really?
Was it?
Pierre Francois Jackson, a made up name.
Huh.
These are names that Amin was just texting me while I was doing this, so he was complicit.
Wow.
Can I can
Honor
we go
amongst
back?
thieves, huh?
Can we go back to the guy that died and left his kids a bunch of pennies thing? What if he was more devious and left in the million pennies a couple of those pennies that are worth like $80,000 each, but you have to search through all the pennies to find the right year? By the way, I also don't buy that because people say that all the time, like, oh, a 1943 penny or whatever it is worth like $3 million. It's like, what sucker is going to give me $3 million for 1 cent? Because I don't believe that that's real.
Never watch Antique Roadshow, huh?
You need to find someone to buy these things for them to be worth the things that they
You
say
can
that they
say
are. though.
anything is worth anything if you want to, really.
No, if Antique Roadshow says it's worth that much,
The most expensive penny right now was $408,000.
there you go.
Yeah.
What year?
The 1944 steel wheat penny.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
44
How about
was
that?
a year
for
Off
pennies.
the top of my head.
I also saw
Penny for your
Dan.
thoughts.
Speaking of fathers that died
About
and
the
tried to
steel
teach their
flan
children a
penny.
lesson, I saw a story and it reminded me of Arrested Development where a father died and arrived at his funeral in a helicopter to teach his children a lesson to enjoy their time with him when they had it.
I love that story, man. I saw that story today. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
You have to cut that guy off forever, right?
No.
You're never speaking to that family member again.
Teaching them a lesson. That's the lesson he's teaching. You guys don't call me enough.
That's why you should never leave a note and just give me a call sometime. Yeah. Just say hi.
That's why you never trust a man with one arm or whatever.
Gene
the joke is.
Parmesan.
Yeah, exactly.
See, Gene Parmesan was a character on this television program called Arrested Development.
Speaking of Will Arnett, Gob Bluth, he's hosting a simulcast of Formula One races this year with Daniel Ricciardo now on ESPN. They're doing the Manning cast for F1.
Oh, he used to do the show with Michelle Beadle
Yeah.
and Miro.
Yeah, he's,
Now he doesn't. Now he's moved on to bigger.
they're only doing it for 3 races, so I'm not sure if he's still doing other Formula One ventures.
Doesn't
as
Will
well.
Arnett hate you, Dan?
Does he?
Yeah, because you did an HQ interview with him, and
News
you
to
only
Dan.
asked you started grief eating, and the publicist was like super mad about it.
The first I'm hearing of it.
Oh,
No.
we caused lots of problems. We
Yeah,
lost a
there's so
lot
many
of guests
problems.
because of it.
Dan
yeah.
didn't even know.
Well, it was supposed to be to promote the Lego movie, and instead it was about Addiction. Yeah.
It usually
What's with
goes
this
there.
Dan Le Batard guy anyway?
Just can't resist.
With club sauce.
Club sauce.
I'm learning right now. You guys could probably reveal to me a top 10 of things like that I would
Taylor
learn right
Lautner.
now.
He had a very powerful publicist who made sure that you got no one for a very long time.
First I'm hearing of it.
Yeah.
Ed Helms.
Because I asked Will Arnett about addiction.
It wasn't once.
Only about addiction.
Yeah.
Only about addiction.
Why am I hearing this for the first time
It's
now?
not.
You're always the last.
I don't know who you're trying to fool, but it's certainly not the first time we've made you aware that Will Arnett hates your guts.
I love Will Arnett.
And it's most certainly not the first time we've told you the ramifications of Will Arnett hating your guts.
I am telling you with 100% honesty that I'm receiving this information. Don't you think?
I think Stugotz knows Will Arnett hates your guts.
I've gotten so many people angry over the years that I simply forget. I have so many in the library that Will Arnett, who I love and I watch, I give no thought to when I'm watching him. None. Zero. To that person hates me. I remember a terrible interview.
Dude, he hates you.
Mike and
Now you
I have
should.
had to scratch off entire teams. Like, we don't go to those
Yeah.
teams.
Franchises?
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, the
franchise.
Memphis
Yes.
Grizzlies paid for that for about 15 years.
Never get a
Had to
Grizzly
wait for
again.
people to retire.
That I know. I knew Memphis Grizzlies. I knew King Kong Bundy.
He died. You're good.
I know that he was mad at me.
What's the guy that called him Monkey?
Diamond Dallas Page is still with us.
Okay, all right.
That one I know as well. Wrestlers, I've got a good library of wrestlers that I have bothered. The late Joan Rivers, I remember that we bothered her
Yeah,
as a
we
show.
did bother her. Who did you ask about eating children? Was it Patrick Willis?
That one just didn't land, but I think we're good.
Okay, all right.
He's been on with us since.
Yes, he
he's
has.
back
Really?
on. That was fine.
And
Bounce back.
Still pretty boring.
Stephen A. still probably hates you.
Jimmy Butler.
Apparently, he talked about you on the McAfee show today, Dan.
I'm good with Stephen A. I'll never have any problems with Stephen A. Stephen A. doesn't have any problem with it. See, all this stuff comes to me, and I'm not sure what people have right and what they don't have right. Will Arnett evidently is right because all of you believe it. I'm dead serious when I tell you I have no institutional knowledge of this. I feel like I'm hearing it for the first time.
Let me be very, very clear. Dan Le Batard is like a brother to me. We grew up in this industry. He is one of the most gifted writers I have ever seen. But you mean to tell me you've never cut off a brother? I'm appalled that you think that we are still good, Dan Le Batard, after you besmirched my name.
One of the things from yesterday that I enjoyed so much, like it was
What
so
was that
good.
impression?
That-
I was lost. Sorry.
There's a television personality named Stephen A. Smith. He's featured very prominently on ESPN, which is known as the worldwide leader in sports. And he has a very bombastic style when he communicates. Continue.
Back to you, Dan.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the amount of space I've been given here.
I don't believe you. I think that's sarcasm.
You see, sarcasm is
Yeah.
this tool that people use, Michael, that sometimes when they say one thing, but they actually mean the exact opposite.
Look at Dan's face right now.
Guys,
when he
it's
closes
dog
his
day.
eyes and
Stop.
starts doing breathing exercises into the microphone, that means we've irked him. So
Yeah,
let's
I stopped looking.
Yeah.
You should
at
get
them.
Willow in here. She's good for that.
let's get a therapy.
She's a therapy dog.
I feel for him though.
Give her a pet. You'll feel better.
Shannon Sharp yesterday, while he is doing his tearful goodbye on Interrupted, instead of pardon the interruption, just interruption. He's doing his tearful goodbye, and Skip Bayless interrupted him.
Of course he did.
And he's like, "Let me finish." He's like, "I'm crying right now with gratitude
This is why I'm leaving.
to Skip Bayless." And Skip Bayless, at the moment there was a silence, Skip Bayless stepped into it. And you will have noticed in the segment that we just did, the tensions that arise when people work together for a long time and one of them is not allowed to speak.
Two of them.
the ones whose names are on the show.
Oh, because I never get interrupted.
Seems like everybody has their resentments.
In the end,
Good timing.
Tony?
Yeah, Tony, finish us out.
1000.
This guy walks around with a drape on him that not a lot of people have, which is he's just walking through the streets and people see his face and they're like, that person knows more than the rest of us do about things. And now he is writing. Stugotz, he's an author, and I didn't know he knew about the afterlife, but evidently he knows about that as well. He's got the 100 places to see after you die. So he is done knowing everything that there is to know on this planet, this time space continuum, and is now visiting another one. This book, I suspect, is better than the Bible in terms of bringing you the afterlife and what is possible in the afterlife. Ken Jennings, if you're not familiar, is the guy who won at Jeopardy in a way that was freakish and unbelievable and now co-hosts Jeopardy. So he won 74 times in a row. I don't know how he lost. Choked. He's a bum.
Do it 75 times, Jennings.
Yeah, I don't know what happened on the 75th. Do you have great remorse, Jennings? And thank you for joining us about what happened on the 75th. Do you go back in time and just have nightmares about like, oh, I had this one and that one. I should still be playing. No one should have beaten me.
One thing I've learned is that every Jeopardy player is, for the rest of their life, just haunted by the clue that beat them. Like I saw in John McCain's obituary, he was still mad about what is Ecuador when he was on Jeopardy in the 70s, so yes, I still feel the pain, but you know what, like by the odds, I think I should have lost long before that. It was a weird DiMaggio-like streak that never should have happened.
What is the one that haunts you? The question.
H&R Block. I'm in a strip mall. I see the H&R Block sign and I think, if only I'd said, what is H&R Block? I'd still be on Jeopardy today. It would be like game 1000.
Forgive me. What was the question that you missed? Did you have it somewhere in the recesses? What was the answer you missed, I guess?
People tell me it's easy, so you guys will enjoy this, especially because I just gave you the correct response. It's like most of this firm's 14,000 white-collar workers are seasonal employees and only work a couple months of the year.
What is H&R Block?
Oh, you're right.
Yes.
What was I thinking?
Excellent work by Stugotz. Smarter than Ken Jennings. Not surprising at all. We'll get to your book in a second, but when did you realize, at what age did you realize that you were talented at this thing?
I was always a game show nerd as a kid. I remember just being heartbroken on my first day of kindergarten that I was going to miss Hollywood Squares and Password. So I was like a deeply weird kid. But Jeopardy was very empowering. You see smart people on TV who know everything. And that was always just who I was. The kid reading out of the Guinness Book of World Records, amazing facts about the biggest pumpkin pie ever baked. It's a certain kind of kid. And I feel like I must have just come out of the womb that way.
Do you have a bit of a photographic memory?
I don't know if that's a thing. Like, I remember things the way everybody does, which is if you're interested in them, they just stick, right? You don't have to work to memorize the lyrics of the song you like or the names of the roster on your favorite team. Like, the stuff you like just sticks in your head. And I think the thing about Jeopardy people is we're just interested in everything. So if you can trick yourself into being interested in everything, then everything sticks. It's like you have a photographic memory.
Do you ever tone it down, like when you're around other people, or you just always kind of like annoying and telling them you know everything?
No, one thing about America being deeply suspicious of know-it-alls is you breathe that in as a kid. Like at some point you realize, oh, it is not a hit with girls that I know Captain Kirk's middle name. And so I developed this sense of shame about it, which I think is good because it turned into a self-awareness of do not always be the biggest know-it-all in the room. That's a dick move. And I think that served me pretty well.
What is Tiberius?
Look at that.
Yeah.
Do you have a story in a cocktail party setting where you are, or many stories where you're purposely being dumber so that you're not the dick?
Yeah, often you're soft pedaling it. Somebody will say something that's wrong, and you're like, I think I once heard a podcast about that, and maybe it's the other way. Because I don't want to let it go unchallenged. There's too much of that in America. But there's certainly the desire to not take pleasure in it. I think that's the character flaw.
Mm-hmm. You taking notes, Dan? Or
I was just asking Mike. I was asking Mike if he's taking notes. It's there's something.
Copious notes.
There's real wisdom to be had in what it is the man is sharing, including what he's got to say about the 100 places to see after you die. The first time you went on Jeopardy, though, were you 100% confident? Like, you imagined what in your wildest dreams?
You know, I knew everybody on that show was the same weird kind of kid as me. And so my only goal was to not be the person who's in the red going into Final Jeopardy. You know how if you're negative, you just kind of disappear from the third act of the show? I always felt so bad for those people. And once I did not do that, I was like, oh, okay, like, this isn't a catastrophe. I can loosen up. And every game that I won, it was just gravy. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I was fine with one.
Ken, I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but I'm a little concerned at the general lack of care that we have that aliens are very much clearly invading our planet. The sightings are going up exponentially. There was this whole neighborhood in Las Vegas that very rationally described aliens walking through their neighborhood with big bulging eyes. Do you believe in alien life? You're a very smart person. And are you concerned at people's lack of concern?
I'm Gen X, which means I was educated by hundreds of books about aliens and Bermuda Triangle and Bigfoot, like who built the pyramids. This was going to be a big part of my life, I thought. It's one of the big reasons I wrote this book about the afterlife, because I've always loved mysteries. But the thing about aliens is we've all got cameras on our phones now. Like, wouldn't we have better cell phone videos at
They
this point?
redacted it. They redacted it, claiming private property. That's why we don't see what's in the backyard, Ken. Come on.
Also, who built the pyramids will shock you.
They had
It's
Wi-Fi.
very convenient that there's no video. I'm just saying it's very convenient. There's no video.
You're correct. Did you at any point have a secret jealousy or a private feud with that grinning freak James Holzhauer?
James is a very unique person, but the thing about you get to know him and you find, oh, this is disappointing because he's actually kind of lovely and normal. It's just that on TV, he watched enough pro wrestling that he thought Jeopardy needed a heel, and he does not break kayfabe. Like, he is dedicated to that idea that Jeopardy needs a bad guy. But to his credit, he was right. You know, without him, the GOAT tournament never happens. Jeopardy Masters, The Chase on ABC. We have all this TV now built around the idea that Jeopardy just needed an a-hole for almost 40 years, and we didn't know.
What would you say in honor of Pat Sajak saying this will be his final 41st season with Wheel of Fortune? What are the top 5 game shows of all time, according to Ken Jennings, game show aficionado?
Yeah, Pat Sajak is an absolute legend. You know, he's the only other person, until I did it, who had hosted an episode of Jeopardy. He and Alex switched place once for an April Fool's gag. The guy was just reliable. You know, Jeopardy and Wheel are comfort food, and he never let the price of a vowel go up. Over 40 years, no inflation, $250 still. You got to admire that.
Do you have a top 5, though, for us of what you would say are the best game shows of all time? Do Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy both belong in there?
Sony is my employer, so yes, absolutely. Jeopardy and Wheel. After that, got to be Family Feud. That was my favorite as a kid. Yeah. Password. I think that's a show that needs to come back. And I really liked
Stump the Schwab.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Stump the
Thank
Schwab.
you.
I thought so.
100 Places to See After You Die is available now. Tell us why you wrote it, what you're writing about. You did pretty meticulous research such that it is on the afterlife, correct?
I did not die, but yes, I spent years in libraries reading ancient Buddhist sutras and weird mystics' visits to the afterlife. I've always been fascinated by, well, everything. I'm interested in everything. And so when I go down a rabbit hole like this, I get really, really excited about whatever it is. And in this case, it was the biggest mystery of all, you know? What happens when you die? We've thought about this for thousands of years. Is it the Egyptian Hall of Judgment? Is it Dante's Inferno? Is it The Good Place? Is it the sitcom heaven where Larry David goes when he dies on Curb? You know, so there's hundreds of these theme park rides and fantasy role-playing games and comic books. They all have their own vision of the afterlife. And I wanted to take readers through them all because there's a lot of imagination there. It tells us a lot about ourselves, what we think might await us.
Do you rank them? Do you have do you go to number one, or it's just 100 of the best ones?
I would say it's 100 of the best, but I do have personal favorites. I think, like, if I had to choose an afterlife, I feel like it's hard to beat the vibe in the Field of Dreams in Iowa. You know, like just spending all day in the bleachers watching old timey baseball in the corn. That sounds pretty good, actually.
Wow, that's I'm surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Stugotz said that. I'm surprised that you've done meticulous research on all of history's theories on the afterlife, and you've arrived at.
I was not heaven, Dan.
I did. A cornfield with Kevin Costner is not where I thought our story would end up.
There are 99 others, but do they have old-timey ball players in scratchy uniforms? No, it turns out that's what I want.
All right. So since you're such a sports fan, we're going to try and stump you here with Stugotz. He's going to try and stump Jeopardy's maestro here with some sports questions. Let's go ahead and ask the first one, Stugotz.
All right, Ken. This person left Oklahoma City for Golden State and won no titles with the Warriors.
Who is Kevin Durant?
Yes.
That's not.
I believe he
It's
won.
very easy to stump me with sports trivia, but those are the former Sonics, so that's my team.
All right.
Okay, but they won
Dan,
2
don't
titles.
interrupt, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
very
They
good.
won.
All
They
right.
won none.
right.
This person won 8 straight titles in the 90s with the Chicago Bulls.
8 straight.
It's
Who is Jordan?
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
not 8 straight.
Yeah.
He didn't win 8
Yes.
straight. He
He
won.
did.
He won.
It's 6
Well, that
straight.
leads to my next question.
It's 6 straight.
This Houston Rockets center from Nigeria never won an NBA title.
Who is Akeem the Dream Olajuwon?
You are on your game
They're all
today,
wrong.
Ken Jennings.
They're all the
Do
questions
not
are wrong.
co-sign
The
these hot
answers are
takes.
wrong. Do you have anything else?
This former Clipper and current Phoenix Suns point guard is not a top 10 point guard of all time.
I think I'm stumped. Wait, who is this?
That would be Chris Paul.
Okay, but I don't understand what it is that we're doing here.
I got 3 or 4. It's pretty good.
100 places to see after you die. He just wanted to give you takes and his opinions on things. Ken, thank
Seems
you for
like he
being.
agrees.
It doesn't seem like he agrees. Thank you for being on with us, Ken. We appreciate it.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Very fun. Thank you.